We're live in 3, 2...
Welcome to LeatherBrainz, your host here, Slapdog, and it is Week 15 review here in the NFL. I am joined today by Scotty Del Rey and Alan Casanova Castro. We are all in the studio and present, and it is going to be a fun old time. Welcome into Week 15, boys, where the Bills might be the best team in football. The entire Lions organization is on the IR. And, guys, we have grown men who are just quitting on their teams in the middle of a game again this season. So who would have thought that another season, another grown man quitting right around the halftime mark? So before we start talking about all that, though, we have to give a shout-out to our sponsor, Erica's Healthy Pet. Whether it be cheesy bites, turkey jerky, beef liver chews, sweet potato chips, and so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you right now, you have to go check out ericashealthypet.com and use code LB20. You're going to get 20% off of your order, right? So this is not for you to consume the cheesy bites or the turkey jerky or the beef liver chews or maybe even the sweet potato chips, but this is for your loved animal, right? Whether it be a cat or a dog. And by the way, you can eat some of these products. I have witnessed my co-hosts here eat some of these products that are for their loved dog. But if you go over to Erica's Healthy Pet and use code LB20, you're going to get 20% off your order. Alan, did you have something to mention here about Erica's Healthy Pet?
Yeah, I just got my cheesy bite. Do you want me? I'll do it right now. I'll go up and grab the box and I'll try one.
Yeah, I think we probably should do that.
That's
okay,
necessary.
you guys keep going. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go grab my box. I think because I got the cheesy bites.
We're just going to be talking about Erica's Healthy Pet this whole time. So you go grab them. We're going to talk about some of our favorite things that we get from Erica's Healthy Pet. Scotty, what is your favorite thing that you get from Erica's Healthy Pet?
It's got to be the beef sprinkles. That's what I tried, and it was so delicious for me. But more importantly, my dogs have the most sensitive stomachs of any animal that has ever lived on planet Earth. And so every now and again, we got to change their food up, or maybe we give them a medication for something, and it messes with their stomach, and then they won't eat. And obviously, that's not good. Your dogs have to eat. So you just sprinkle a little bit of that on there, beef sprinkles right on their food, and they go from not really wanting to eat to bam, back at it like normal, and they just scarf it all down. So I don't know what sort of mystery ingredients exist. I'm sure I could just read the bottle, but I'd prefer to be left in awe. And whatever's in there, like, it is irresistible to dogs. No matter how much they don't want to eat or if their stomach's bothering them or whatever, bam, they're just munching on it immediately.
And you've ate one of these beef sprinkles as well, is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. And it was delicious.
And if you were to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate these beef sprinkles?
Like, give me something that's a 10.
What? That feels very subjective. What would be a 10?
Yeah, I know. I don't know what your favorite.
It's a 10 food for everybody. Like, what would be a 10 out of 10 where everybody agrees that that's like the best?
Pizza.
Lasagna. I was going to say lasagna. I feel like everybody loves lasagna.
I love both those things.
Okay, so compared to pizza and lasagna.
Yeah, compared to pizza.
Okay, but what's a 1? What's a 1 for everybody?
Dog shit.
Yeah.
Actually,
no. Poop from an animal.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's way closer to pizza than dog shit.
Okay. So actual food, then what's a 1? What's a 1? Something that universally people are like, that's pretty gross.
Anchovies.
Like anchovies? Anchovies. We said the same thing.
I like anchovies, though, but
not anchovies.
I don't like beans.
Most people don't like them. I get the idea.
What kind of beans?
Asparagus.
Hold on.
Asparagus.
Go back to the beans thing. What kind of beans don't you like?
I just don't like beans. Like refried beans?
Any bean?
Not a fan. No, like I'll eat beans if they're with something, but like, just don't hand me a plate of refried beans. I'm not interested.
Oh, I love refried
I agree.
beans, dude.
I mean, in being Hispanic, that's sometimes sacrilegious, but sometimes I'm like, miss me on the beans. Just give me some more like the carnitas.
Give me some rice. Yeah. All right.
So I got
anyway, I'd put him at like an 8.
Okay. Thank God. I forgot we were even rating those. All right.
Yeah, I forgot what we were doing.
Are you going to eat one of these cheesy bites?
Yeah, we got cheesy bites here. It just says it's rice flour, all natural, hormone-free cheddar cheese, chicken stock, eggs, olive oil, oregano. That's it.
Sounds like the same thing I'm making for dinner.
It sounds like perfectly edible for a human
cheesy
being.
Bites. There's a little crunchy. If I crunch into the mic, I'm sorry. Anybody listening?
No, we want the ASMR.
ASMR, yeah, for sure. Oh my God. 1 to 10, Alan. 1 being anchovies, 10 being pizza.
I mean,
And remember, they're our sponsor.
I mean, this is up there. I mean, I might be grabbing one of these treats when I give it to the dog. I mean, completely honest. This is actually really good. This is not even me just like, these are actually really good.
I can't tell. If they're so good, eat another one.
Guys, they're actually not bad. So if anything happens to me overnight, just know that, remember this point in time, and this is all being recorded, so this is great for any evidence.
Yeah. Well, guess what, Alan? If you do run out of those cheesy bites, you can go to ericashealthypet.com and use code LB20 and get 20% off your order to get yourself some more cheesy bites. Although I do think they are for your loved animals, but all is to say, if they're that good,
in a pinch,
you know where to find them. Yeah,
in a pinch, during like a zombie apocalypse. I mean, those things will keep you moving.
Cheesy bites. All right. Well, go check out ericashealthybet.com. Use code LB20, 20% off your order. And now let's talk about the Week 15 review. Gentlemen, I want to start with Devondre Campbell. This guy is a douchebag. All right. This guy is the epitome of an asshole. And I wish nothing but the worst for this human being. The 49ers, they did lose this game against the Rams 6-12. But in the middle of the third quarter, 49ers middle linebacker Devondre Campbell was asked to go in and play. Campbell said he didn't want to play, and then he went into the locker room. The 49ers reportedly have suspended him instead of cutting him from the roster so that he cannot join another team. And they've also announced that he no longer has a locker within the facility. So good on the 49ers. What a joke of a human being. Like, that frustrates the shit out of me. Is like, first and foremost, you're playing a sport that most people would give their entire life to go play, like at that level, right? And you have the opportunity to go in and play. And you're just like, you know what? I think I'm okay. And then you just turn and go to the locker room. You let all your teammates down. You let your coaches down. And like, that to me is one of the biggest scumbag moves I think you could do in this sport, is just walk out on your team.
Yeah, and anybody that's waffling on like what happened or why or didn't he go in, I think the most damning piece of evidence is like knowing how tight NFL locker rooms are, how it's a brotherhood, they stick up for each other. You have guys that are not throwing each other under the bus. Almost immediately, there was players in the locker room being like, I've never seen that. I don't know why he didn't go in. That's weird. Like, why didn't he want to play? Like, and the coach is saying, like, that is the most damning piece of evidence for him. I don't know if he'll ever play again in the NFL. Like, who's going to want to sign somebody that just flat out quit in the middle of it, and everything you just said? To not know how privileged you are to play and make the money you're making, and to just make that like childish decision to say, I don't want to play. I'm not going in. You know, like.
Well, and I know it seems like a lot of people are making it about the team, which is valid. You know, you don't want to walk out on your team. But like, I don't care if I have to like sort through human feces to make a $60 million a year contract or whatever it is that these NFL players make. Yeah, I'm never going to quit that job. And if my boss calls me and says, hey, we need you to sort through human feces today, there's no chance I just say no. Like, I'm like, okay, I'll do whatever the fuck you want because you're paying me so much money. So like, I don't understand. And his job is to, play a game and work out for a living. Like, that's, yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's hard on the body, but that's a pretty damn good gig. And it is so unbelievably stupid to just be like, nah, I'm done now. I'm over it. Like, it makes sense for Antonio Brown, kind of, because he might be like brain dead. But for normal people, it doesn't make any sense at all.
I don't understand it. I don't
it was
understand
weird.
It was weird. I could not, like, I was angry for the 49ers organization. I'm like, that's not somebody I would want on my team. Like that, just like you mentioned, like, it's a brotherhood, right? Like you go out there and you play for each other, and like, to find that or the lack of care is just alarming. But looking at the other side of things here, this game, it was pouring rain, right? And like I mentioned, the Rams did win this 12-6. Are the Rams a team that nobody wants to play or see on their schedule right now? Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay, you're both.
Yeah. We've been talking about it for a few episodes now, right? Like, you've seen this coming. You saw the Bills last week. This week, they take care of business again. They're getting healthy. Like, this is not who you want to see. And if you're a team like the Eagles, or you're a team even like the Lions, which I know we'll get into that game, this is not how you want your first game in the playoffs to go, as a team that's getting healthier while your team might be going the opposite direction.
Yeah. Well, in the next 3 games for the Rams are the Jets, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks. So there's a pretty good chance that the Rams can walk away from this with 3 more wins. Like looking at this schedule here, and I bring that up because I want to talk about the NFC West for just a moment. So the Rams are currently leading the division at 8-6, followed by the Seahawks, who are also 8-6 and sit right below the Rams. And then you have the Cardinals at 7-7, and then the 49ers at 6-8. So all's to say, this division is not a lock yet, but it's certainly shaping up for the Rams to be in a very good position for to attempt to lock in the NFC West here. So,
well, especially because Geno Smith is, I don't know if there's any definitive news on him yet, but it looks like he might be out for the remainder of the season. I mean, with a knee injury. And so, with Sam Howell leading that Seahawks team, there's a decent chance that we see quite a slide from them over the next 3 weeks.
Yep. In the next 3 for the Rams.
Does that mean that the Cardinals might
12% chance to win?
In?
The problem is they played the Seahawks before Geno died. Like, if they would have waited to play the Seahawks till now, I mean, they should have done. They should have thought of that probably. Yeah, they should have thought of doing that. But since they didn't, that still makes it pretty tough.
Well, not this Sunday, but the next Sunday is Rams Cardinals. That game is in LA though. But the Rams have the Jets, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks to round it out. So,
I mean, I think the Rams. I think it's a division. It's a 53% chance for them to win the division, and I think that it's almost a lock at this point.
And that number probably was published before the Geno injury, so I'm sure that factors in quite a bit.
I don't know. Okay, hang on. So thinking of the Cardinals, well, yeah, the Rams would have to lose 2, wouldn't they?
Yeah. The Rams are going to have to drop some games.
Never mind. So the Cardinals.
We're going to need the Seahawks to drop 2 games, and we're going to need a wild card push here, gentlemen. That's really the only way this works out.
Yeah, we'll see.
Because the Rams are going to take the division.
Going to happen.
The Cardinals also have a 12% chance to make the postseason.
Because the Commanders are 9-5. You have the NFC North, where basically everybody's fighting for a 1 seed, damn near.
We blew it, gentlemen.
Yeah, that might be it.
We're probably done. Season's over.
If you're in the AFC, hang on. But let's say, can the Cardinals switch to the AFC? Because I think they might get in. I'm looking.
If we were in the AFC, we would have a decent shot.
The AFC West is going to have 3 teams.
Yeah,
somehow,
Cardinals could definitely. Can we switch the Chargers for the Cardinals?
I don't know. I kind of enjoy hating on the Chargers.
Can we do a straight up trade?
Just a sort of 1-to-1 swapski? I don't know. The Cardinals are probably not going to go. I think that's fair to say. But I do think the Rams are a division lock at this point. I mean, they're the team nobody wants to play for good reason, because they look really good. Like, across the board, they're getting healthy at the right time. Puka's, doing Puka things now that he's back. Kyron Williams has still looked wonderful. So I don't really take – is there anything that we want to take away from this game, or anything else that you want to comment on as far as the 49ers or the Rams? I mean, I think for me, it was pouring rain, as I mentioned, so it was very hard to really pinpoint or hang our hat on anything other than the fact that I think the 49ers season is probably done.
That's probably the only thing of note here. The only other thing I would note is if you were going to place a bet on the Rams to win the division, you should have done it before they played this Sunday, because you would have gotten some pretty good odds. But now they're a heavy favorite in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that does not surprise me. And somebody who's not favored to go very far, according to Vegas, is presumably the Bengals. I think this Bengals defense is the sole reason that the Bengals won't go to the Super Bowl this year, which is somewhat unfortunate. So the Bengals, they did win 37-27 against the Titans. But I brought some stats here, gentlemen, that I'd like to talk about regarding Joe Burrow. So since week 9, Joe Burrow, each week, he's thrown 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. Joe Burrow's lost 3 of these games. The Bengals have lost 3 of these games in spite of how well Joe Burrow's been playing. And they let the Titans this last week score 27 points on them. Mind you, the Titans are ranked 27th in offense so far this season. So, I put here, I do think this sucks for Joey B a little bit, because I think, Joe Burrow is having an MVP-esque level season and is putting up some wild numbers and keeping the Bengals in contention for a lot of these games, or even within the conversation. But his defense is so bad that nobody's talking about how great Joe Burrow's playing this year.
I would say I would say of all those games you listed, this is the first game where I would have said a little bit of this was actually on Joe. The first Titans touchdown was because he threw a pick on their side of the field. I think it was like on their own 30, which led to the first Titans score. He had 2 picks and a fumble this game, so he also was part of the problem a little bit, but by and large, he was also the reason they won. So it was kind of a mixed bag. I think generally that's the case with this team this year. And keep saying it's a team game. Some teams win ugly, some teams win big. It's kind of like what looks better for you. The flip side is we have teams, like the Bills that are scoring 40 some and also giving up 40, or you have the Chiefs who are scoring barely 30 but not giving up very much. And I think one is more pleasing to the eye, which is why you have these juxtaposition visuals of these teams. But I think the Bengals are that one team where they're really hard pressed to overcome some of these things. Now, I will say they have a good shot of making the playoffs. I would say good as in it looks like damn near 0% a few weeks ago. So it's decent because I think it's the Dolphins have to lose one. I forget who else has to lose one. The Bengals have to win out. And I forget what the other one is, but it's not like totally out of the realm of like possibilities for the Bengals. And if you guys are looking at it,
as of right now, ESPN has the Bengals' chances of making the playoffs at 6%. So going up from less than 1% to 6%.
They play the Browns, the Broncos, and the Steelers. So
I do think
there's a world in which
the Broncos.
Yeah, I think there's a world in which the Bengals could win out. I'm not going to say it's an easy road for them, but I think that they could. It is within the realm of possibility for them to win these next 3 games.
So Scotty might not like this, but here's also in the realm of possibility because we're not going to talk about this game, but it looks like Mahomes is hurt. He might not even play on Saturday. It might be Wentz time on Saturday. What if there's a possibility that either if the Bengals can pull this off, that the Bills or the Chiefs for their first round in the playoffs have to play the Bengals? There's a world out there where it's either going to be Mahomes or Allen playing Burrow first round in the playoffs.
I'm taking the over. Fun. I'm taking the over. I don't care
Whatever
what it is.
Yeah.
Whatever.
The Chiefs are probably just going to get knocked out if that's what happens. If they're dead, they're dying. Mahomes limps in. That's probably going to be it. And then Allen.
I don't know, man. We thought so in the Super Bowl when Patrick Mahomes in the championship hurt his leg, and then
we'll see.
Came out and was still fine.
Oddly enough, I know I'm supposed to hate the Bengals, but part of me kind of wants to see him pull this off because that would just be unreal.
There's just no way. Their defense is so bad. Their defense is really bad.
It is.
Like, they let the Steelers run all over them. They let the Titans run all over them. That Bengals defense is abysmal. Yeah, like, there's 0% chance the Bengals make it that far in the playoffs. They might win the first game just based on pure luck.
Saying, if they get into the playoffs, that's a miracle, right? I mean, they have a 94% chance not to make it. So I think just getting there is it. And then that first game is going to be butthole clenching for whoever they have to play because that's either Josh Allen, who's like,
Statistically, the Cardinals have a better chance of making the playoffs than the Bengals.
Double.
But if gun to your double the percentage that the Cardinals make it than the Bengals.
And we were just saying we just buried the Cardinals.
Yeah, we're like, no, they're done. They're absolutely over. But we're sitting here talking about the Bengals, like the Bengals, they could do it. They have a potential to do it, and it's like, okay, well, let's put our money where our mouth is. Are the Bengals going to go to the playoffs? Are the Cardinals going to go to the playoffs? Like, what's the skinny here?
Is it a push if they both don't go, or are we betting?
I think just friendly bet. I think.
Okay.
What's the ESPN has the Bengals or the Cardinals ranked higher. I would say the Bengals have a better chance than the Cardinals at this point.
Like in my mind, it looks like the Bengals, but I don't know. They were also one fluky blocked punt away against Dallas from being out of this conversation entirely. So who knows? I don't know. They're razor thin, and they were losing for a little bit to the Titans too. We'll see. It's tough. They just have to be perfect, and that's really hard to do in the NFL is to be perfect for that.
They have to be perfect, and for the Cardinals to get in, I think, I don't know the exact scenario, but I presume that the Rams just have to drop a game and then lose to the Cardinals, and the Cardinals have to win out to have a real shot. And I would say that's way more likely than all of these other things coming into play to move from 6% to.
I think we revisit this conversation if the Bengals can actually beat the Broncos. Because the Broncos are also fighting for, to stay in the playoffs. Like, they want to win, too. And so if they start dropping these.
I hate it.
I think the Broncos have, I want to say it was like an 80.
Yeah,
the Broncos have a 93% chance to make it.
They're pretty much
in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're talking about the Broncos. Let's talk about the Broncos. I mean, they beat the Colts 31-13 And gentlemen, it was a bad day to be named Anthony Richardson. This game, the Colts look terrible. I mean, they looked so bad. Anthony Richardson threw for 172 passing yards, 2 interceptions. He had a 36.3 QBR. And I don't want to put all the blame on Anthony Richardson. Obviously, there is a lot of blame to go around here in this loss. And I'd like to highlight Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor's a moron. This guy fumbled the ball into the end zone to try and look cool or running it for a touchdown. How much of an idiot do you have to be? I don't understand. You're playing in the NFL. Jonathan Taylor is highlighted as a top 10 running back in the NFL, right? Like he is supposed to be a very good running back. And do you know how many times I have thought, damn, that running back looks so cool dropping the ball right at the like. I don't understand
That's
it.
the
Like
part I don't get. What's
run
the
into the end zone and then drop
dropping
it?
the ball? Just dropping it at all? Like, why isn't every coach in America been like, well, it's going to be revisited now. Now every coach in the NFL is going to be
as
like,
it should be.
Even in college, you run that ball to the back of the end zone. That's always been like the MO.
You're a pro in the NFL. Why are we even having this conversation? Like, why do coaches have to have this conversation?
It happened in the Bengals game too.
Pro.
Did you see that in the Bengals game? There was a fumble recovery, and the Bengals were returning it for the end zone, and the DB did the same thing. He dropped it, and it went out of the end zone, and that was it. And they didn't get the touchdown for the fumble recovery for a touchdown. So even the Bengals defense, add that to the list of things they're shitty at. They can't even do like a fumble recovery for a touchdown because they fumble it. And then you have Jonathan Taylor doing the same thing. I just don't understand the infatuation. It's 2024. Like, I think we've seen enough use cases where guys like drop it, and I get it. Like, energy probably.
It doesn't even look cool. It's not like not like us as fans are sitting there like with our stopwatch being like, dang, man, he dropped that 0.6 seconds after he crossed the line. That's freaking badass. It's like, dude, just run the damn ball in. Like, it does not take that much brain power to figure out, okay, run into the colored space that is like the end zone, and then I'm good to go. And then I don't care what you do with the ball. You can take it, throw it in the stands. You can punt it as far as you want. I don't care if you throw it at the ref, but at least bring it into the end zone. Like, that's your job.
Points. And that completely turned this game around. The Broncos 100%. Looked like they were on the ropes. And then the Colts tried to do a trick play, and then that got returned for a touchdown. It was just a calamity of errors for the Colts after that point. I know Taylor's going to take some heat, as he should, because that you could circle that play and be like, that's the one that kept him out of the playoffs.
100%. It changed the entire trajectory of the game. Like they were dominating that game in total control until that moment, and then they still maintained the lead until the fourth quarter. And it just, all the momentum was gone after that boneheaded play. This might be an old man take. I got a lot of those.
I love them, yeah.
But
bring them
it
on.
seems like when I'm watching the game as a fan, like doing touchdown celebrations and dances and all that stuff, like, yeah, I think you're playing a game for a living. You should do what you want, have fun. But as a fan, I generally think players look the coolest when they act like it's not a big deal. Like, you run into the end zone, hand the ball to the ref, jog off the field. I'm like, that guy's a badass. Like, that guy doesn't even give a shit about stats. He doesn't care about anything. He's just like, another notch in the belt. We're moving toward victory. Like, that seems like the cool thing to do, not celebrating and ruining your chances for your team. Like, it just seems very stupid. I don't understand what the appeal is.
Slaps, what's your take on this?
I think so here's my thing. I think that the celebrations after, like where the players do some really dumb shit, I love it. Like where they all line up in a line and you roll the football and they're like, go bowling. Like, I'm in for that kind of stuff. I think that's just, it's stupid and it has no bearing on the game other than it's just kind of fun. I tend to agree with Scotty, though. I do think that, like, when a player just gets a touchdown and just runs, like, jogs out the field or whatever, he's just like, I've been here before. You know, like, that's the mentality that I see. Yeah, like, he's like, this is not anything to celebrate about. Like, so I see both sides of the spectrum. I do think they're really stupid, funny ones. Or like if a fat guy gets a touchdown, there's absolutely 100% chance he should be celebrating. Like, there's if a big man gets a touchdown, you let him do whatever he wants for however long he wants, because that is a once in a lifetime accomplishment for that man. Give it to him. Now, if you're Christian McCaffrey, what?
Imagine how cool it would be when a big man gets a pick six or a scoop and score, and he just walks over and hands the ball to the ref and just walks off the field. Like, oh my God. That's like God tier status. That's like enshrined forever.
Here's why.
It never happens for the big guys.
Here's why I kind of like when they celebrate, and this is just a coach mentality, I think, for me. So even back when like Terrell Owens was doing all his stuff, and you know, he'd bring like a marker in his sock and he'd like sign the football and then toss it in the crowd. Like, part of me is like, this guy is so confident he is going to score he has planned out his whole celebration, and part of me likes that because now he's not even worried about what play he has to make. He's just like, I got to hurry up and score so I can get this celebration out of the way. And I almost like that because it's like this man has confidence to the nth degree that he's damn near throwing a parade in the end zone because he was so ready to score a touchdown. Part of me likes it. I get it. I hear you. I like it. I think they should allow them to do more shit like bring fireworks and bottle rockets and shit. But
yeah, I mean, ultimately
Screw the hell with the
my preference is the cool guy thing. But if you're gonna celebrate, then I'm all for it. I mean, just make sure you're in the fucking end zone. Just make sure
I
you're
like
in the
when
end
Mike
zone before you
Gesicki
go.
does the gritty.
The gritty.
Because it's
Yeah.
so bad. And like
He
it's just
knows
kind of
it.
like his trademark thing now. It's just like
oh yeah,
when he gets it, he's going to do a really bad gritty because he knows that that's his thing now. Like, or like the Gronk spike. Like, I'm all in for a Gronk spike because that's what Gronk used to do. Like, that was his trademark thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, you do that, I'm okay with it.
I'm mad they don't let them dunk anymore on the goalposts.
Yeah,
I was sad when
Yeah,
they took that
that
away
does
because that was
suck.
cool.
and it was
That's
quick.
such a
Like, it
relatable
didn't
thing.
take up too much time. Just a cool
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, it's also cool
No, I
too
agree.
because if they couldn't get there, it was also hilarious if they couldn't jump that high. But they tried.
I've tried it. I've hurt myself. All right, let's keep moving here, gentlemen. Let's talk about the Chargers. Scott, I'm gonna let you talk about the Chargers as the hater of the Chargers here on this podcast. I'm just gonna turn the microphone over to you and let you carry this one.
Yeah, I got my Super Bowl every week is watching the Chargers lose, and lucky for me, it happens pretty frequently as long as they're not playing teams that have 1 or 2 or 3 wins. And they did it again this week when they played Baker Mayfield and a Bucs team that looks awesome. Like the Bucs are sort of schizophrenic in that way, where sometimes they come out. I mean, they had a lot of injuries this year; they've had to overcome a lot, but when they turn it on and Baker Mayfield's balling, like they are one of the most fun teams to watch, and it's even more fun when they're doing it to the Chargers. The Chargers now have lost J.K. Dobbins, which sucks because like the MO of Jim Harbaugh was going to be to run the football. Now it seems like they can't do that. Their defense started out the year playing pretty well. Now they're not. I wonder what the reason for that is. Oh yeah, because they played nobody for the first 9 weeks of the season. So it's like, okay, yeah, no wonder their defense started out pretty hot and now they're starting to suck now that they have to play the Chiefs a couple times and the Ravens and the Broncos again. So it's like, yes, the Chargers are ass. And I'm sorry to all the people who were like, Jim Harbaugh, look how good the Chargers look. They're turning this organization around. They're on the up and up. Now, Jim Harbaugh's not a magical fairy. He's not the what's the fairy godmother from Cinderella. He can build the organization over time. They're not there yet, but they're going to make the playoffs in all likelihood, and I think they're going to be the most fraudulent team in the postseason because they have not proven jack fucking shit throughout this entire year.
Interesting. I like that
That
take.
is pretty interesting. I mean,
That's a good
even.
take.
Yeah,
What do-
I think
what do we
the
think?
Chargers are still. I don't know. I think the Chargers are not a bad team. I don't think they're like a wonderful team, but I do think winning in the NFL is hard, and I get that they, according to you, Scotty, and according to statistics, they have not played the most difficult schedule. So I understand that, but regardless, I think wins are wins, and I do think the Chargers are somebody who. You know, I know that they're a division rival of yours, and I know the Broncos are not the Broncos. That I was thinking the Broncos, and they are a division rival. But the Chargers, I think they're a couple years away still. I do think that they are building something there. I think
They're on
Harbaugh
the
is
right
building
track.
something there. I just think that they need a couple more years to get some pieces and figure out kind of what they're going to do moving forward. But they're not in a bad spot, and it's almost kind of refreshing in some ways to see because your division is starting to get more interesting, and it's not just the Chiefs' domination like it has been over the last few years. I mean, the Broncos are starting to look pretty good. The AFC West in a whole, aside from maybe the Raiders, is starting to kind of like get a little bit more interesting, which I'm kind of excited for because I think it makes for good football, and I'm tired of seeing 3 shitty teams in the Chiefs.
Well, I think the thing to keep note of here, if you're following the Jim Harbaugh trajectory, you know, he was good with the 49ers. He had a good run. You know, he was only there for what, like 3 or 4 years. Took him to a Super Bowl, was largely successful. Went to Michigan, slowly got it going. But there was a time when he was at Michigan where there was a real possibility he was getting fired. And if it wasn't for COVID, I think he would have been fired already. And what happened was that COVID year ended up shrinking their schedule. They did okay. They won some games. And then he slowly got it on track. But he hadn't been in the NFL for over 10 years now. And if you think of how much the NFL has changed just over a few years, and then you go all the way to 10 years, like that's a long time not to be in the NFL, to just think like you're going to pick this back up and get it rolling. And I think he's having to learn some things, and I think he's figuring it out here towards the end of this year of like, he's rebuilding it. I think he does. I think he has the right blueprint to do it, but I wonder if the NFL rule changes and what you can and can't do on defense anymore. If you look at some of those 49ers defenses that he had, they were just punishing people. Can't do that anymore. Got to get your hands off people. You got, there's certain things that you just can't do anymore. And I think that's showing it up in some of the things that Harbaugh wants to do where he's just not able to. Not that he's not a good coach or couldn't make this happen, but one thing that I'm definitely watching for is 10 years too long to be out of the NFL to like think you can just like pick it back up again and you're just going to be all world. And the division's tough as it is, so I don't know if he'll be able to pick that back up and have that same level of success.
Here's the one positive note I'll leave for Chargers fans, which I know they don't need them because they're probably going to go to the playoffs. They're happy. But any move from Brandon Staley to an established head coach, good move. Like Jim Harbaugh does not have to be the next Bill Belichick in order to be successful at this organization, because over the last recent years they've struggled so much in that department that adding Jim Harbaugh, at least with the pedigree that he has and with his ability to command respect in the locker room, that's a win. I will say, I can't get over the fact that Jim Harbaugh is just a fucking goofball. Like he's just such a weird guy, and I love it. Like it's very entertaining. But I don't see him like even people like Dan Campbell. Like there's a certain amount of respect that they command, and you can see the players react to it, and you see that with the Chargers players. But I don't really see how it correlates. Like, is it just his success, or does he have some secret sauce in the locker room that the cameras don't see? Because every press conference, he just makes himself sound like such a doofus. And it's good, but it's just weird.
He reminds me of Mike McDaniels a little bit.
I can see that. I was going to say he's kind of like a Dan Campbell player coach. Like he played in the NFL. He's there for the players. He kind of like pumps them up. He's kind of got that rah mentality. Dan Campbell does it in a different way. He's definitely a more gritty, like
aggressive.
I'm a tough son of a bitch. Where Jim Harbaugh's like, I'm going to wear player gloves. There's this video where Andy Reid before the Chargers game goes to shake his hand, and he shakes his hand, and Andy Reid looks down like, what the fuck was that? And realized that he actually had gloves on. You could see Andy Reid like, what are you doing? You can see him like questioning everything about Jim Harbaugh. He's a goober for sure.
He's a goober. That's why I think of him like Mike McDaniels, like with the Dolphins head coach. Like the guy is just a goober. But the Dolphins, I think Harbaugh probably commands a little bit more respect than McDaniels does.
Yeah.
But kind of in the same vein where like he is a player's coach and he is a goober. But you look at the Chargers the Chargers team on paper, and we're talking about how fraudulent the Chargers are, but you look at them on paper and you look at the expectation of them going into this season, and it was like, I expected them to be worse than they are right now. Like if we were sitting at week 1 and you asked me, do I think the Chargers are going to go to the playoffs? I would say absolutely not, because their roster got worse. They have a first time, they brought in a new head coach to take over this organization, and he's not a new head coach as a head coach, but he's new to this organization. And so you look at some of this, and I'm like, no, I don't think the Chargers are going to go there. So for us to be here reviewing Week 15 and saying, yeah, the Chargers are going to the playoffs, like I didn't have that on my bingo card, and I think that's something Chargers fans can hang their hat on. And as they start to get more pieces, I do think they could be very competent and dangerous in your division.
Yeah. Well, I certainly Chargers fans are happy no matter what some idiot on this podcast says, being me. So they don't have to listen to me, and they won't, obviously. But my whole point is exactly what you just said. They're fraudulent because the roster composition doesn't make them deserve to be there. The way that they've played, they don't deserve to be here. It's just they've lucked out with so many of their games playing bottom tier teams. And it's not even just like a normal bad team kind of has a worse schedule. It's like the bad teams that they played, especially to start the season, were like they at one point after like 6 or 7 games had one win of a team that had more than 2 total wins throughout the first 6 weeks. Like they were playing the worst of the worst. And yes, you still have to win these games. I'm not taking credit away from them. Yes, they got the job done, and that's good. But the problem is people are viewing Jim Harbaugh as like the savior of this organization, and like, look at this big step that they've taken. And I think they have taken a step. I just don't think the step is as significant.
I will say 2 things can be true at the same time. They could have played a bad schedule, which that's how the NFL is designed. You win your division, you're playing all the other division winners. Like you're playing all the other top dogs on the other side. You don't win your division, you're kind of playing whatever place team that is. And the Chargers obviously had a rough year last year, so they got set up for the schedule to play the other rough teams. So that can be true. The other thing that can be true is that Jim Harbaugh does know how to win. I think he does know how to motivate. And I think with the NFL being as razor thin in these margins, I think he, definitely got the team motivated to win some of these games last year. I think they were finding ways to lose. And so you can see that as a success. I think my point about getting them up to the top of the mountain again is like, that's tough to do. And it's tough to leave and come back and then regroup, and the game evolves as quickly as it as ever anymore with the rule changes and how players and how the game's played. So we'll see. I think it's a good step in the right direction. I will say about the Chiefs though, this time last year they hadn't even won the division yet, and so as competitive as it was, the fact that the Chiefs still won the division before even week 15 is kind of a miracle given how good these teams are.
Yeah, and how bad the Chiefs have played.
It shows you how lucky the Chiefs have been as well this year.
Well, and one last thing before we move to the next game, we got to give Mike Evans his flowers, because it seems like nobody ever gives Mike Evans his flowers. It seems like the only time people talk about him is when we talk about how he's underappreciated, and we don't just appreciate him. In this game, he had 159 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. He now just needs to average 89 yards receiving for the next 3 games to have another 1,000-yard season, which will be his 11th straight, and that's every year of his career in the NFL. Like, this guy is incredible, and it's I don't know what the reason is that we don't consider him in like the top 2, top 3 wide receivers.
And how many games did he miss with his hamstring this year?
3? I don't know.
4?
Some.
He was out for a while.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Scotty, because if you like, you see snippets or clips of wide receivers talking about other wide receivers in the NFL talking about other wide receivers, a lot of them do give flowers to Mike Evans and like he's a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. But like if we were to sit here and peg like who do we think the top 5 wide receivers are in the NFL, I think there's some legitimate conversation where he might not even be included in the top 5, and it's like that just goes to show how undervalued he really is.
You know what this ties back to, and I'm happy you said this, Matt, because what is Mike Evans' famous touchdown celebration?
I don't know.
He doesn't have one. He scores a touchdown and he runs the ball to the ref and runs out back to the sideline. He doesn't do the gritty for 30 minutes like Jamar Chase does or Justin Jefferson. He doesn't do all these like cool tricks and dances and stuff like that. He scores touchdowns and he goes back to the sidelines. And I think from like a fan perspective, I think what hurts him is playing in Tampa Bay. I think sometimes hurts you because when you're in a market like that maybe doesn't cover football or have that juice behind it, sometimes that can hurt you from a cover standpoint. The teams have largely been bad outside of the few years he had Tom Brady, which he was definitely highlighted during those years. But the fact that he's done this and his best quarterback during this time was an old Tom Brady, and he's still putting up 1,000-yard seasons with Baker Mayfield. I think this is an absolutely W take, because I've drafted Mike Evans so many times in all these leagues because I know what I'm getting. I'm going to get 1,000 yards. I'm going to get some touchdowns. And sometimes the touchdowns don't follow. But I think largely a lot of these, X polls or people on Instagram are just because of like Jamar Chase talks so much. And, Jamar Chase is basically like this huge running back that nobody can tackle playing wide receiver. But like true wide receiver skill set, I think it's tough to say Mike Evans isn't one of the top 5 wide receivers in the league.
I do want, let's play the game then. Would you rather have Justin Jefferson or Mike Evans? Would you rather have Jamar Chase or Mike Evans? And I think most people are going to say Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, but once you get to the next tier, that's when it gets very interesting. Like Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown, like who are you taking? And I think when you think Puka Nacua, you think Amon-Ra, you think, oh yeah, those guys are the best of the best. And it's almost like we just don't even put Mike Evans in that conversation, but he definitely deserves to be there.
AJ Brown.
Would you
Mike
say
Evans?
that? Ooh, I would say Mike Evans over AJ Brown. I love AJ Brown, but I would definitely say Mike Evans. If I'm going like body of work of what they've done, like AJ Brown's a freak, but I would say Mike Evans. Imagine if he would have, signed with the Chiefs in the offseason like he was flirting with, like how drastically that would have changed things. But like,
oh, that would have been amazing for y'all.
He's a dude. He's a dude.
Well, and I actually pulled up all the quarterbacks he's played with. So I'm gonna read some of these quarterbacks. This just goes to show how great he is, how great Mike Evans is if he's able to sustain 1,000-yard seasons in lieu of some of these quarterbacks. So first off, he has got Mike Glennon from 2013 to 2016. He played 7 games with him. Josh McCown, he played 11 games with him in 2014. Let's not forget our boy Laser Jameis Winston. He played 68 games with old J-Mo in 2015 through 2019. Okay, got to give flowers to Ryan Fitzmagic. I love Fitzy, and he played with Fitzy for 13 games from 2017 to 2018. Little gentleman by the name of Blaine Gabbert from 2019 to 2022. I played 8 games with him. Of course, Tom Brady, the GOAT, and now Baker Mayfield as well. So, like, it's not all quarterbacks are created equally, and for him to be able to have 1,000-yard seasons with all of these different quarterbacks, like, that's just a true testament to how absolutely skilled Mike Evans is as a human being.
And it's interesting too when you look at the other top tier wide receivers, because obviously Jamar Chase playing with Joe Burrow, okay, that's a pretty elite combination. Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins, and Sam Darnold, like that's obviously still very impressive. But then you look at someone like Tyreek Hill. Well, Tyreek Hill had Patrick Mahomes for the vast majority of his career, and you see now like what can happen when he doesn't have Patrick Mahomes. Like, yes, he can have explosive games, but he's not the same player that he was with Patrick Mahomes. And Mike Evans, just continuity. Just you know what you're going to get. He always performs.
That's some of the, we talked about Puka Nacua. That's some of the fear with Puka Nacua is what will Puka look like in the coming years when Matt Stafford is not around? Because we all know how much Stafford and Sean McVay like to throw the ball. So what's that going to look like without Matt Stafford just throwing bullets at you 30-plus times a game?
Interesting question. I know we're not the fantasy show. Shout out to the fantasy show that we have over here at LeatherBrainz.
Solid shout out.
Yeah, good shout out.
Fantasy Brains on Thursdays.
Fantasy Brains.
Check it on X.
I don't know why I just kept saying LeatherBrainz in my head. Fantasy Brains. If you're holding on to Puka, because you just said that, how long do you hold on to him?
I am holding on to Puka Nacua, and I don't know. I haven't answered that
because
he's dominant. It's lingering.
Like, okay,
no, it's definitely been a thought in my head.
Yeah,
but it's like I'm right now. You and I are playing in the playoffs against each other, and I'm looking like I might skate by. Maybe we'll see what happens here tonight. But I don't know. I've thought like maybe I'll just ride this thing until the wheels fall off because I didn't pay a premium. I mean, at the time I paid a decent trade for him, but like looking back, it's like I won that trade in a vacuum. I traded Rachaad White and God, who was the running back for the Saints last year? The rookie. I can't remember his name, but all to say, it didn't cost me a lot. This was early on before Puka. He was still exploding, but like. It was that lingering, is Kupp going to come back? Is Kupp going to come back and take all this away from him? And that hasn't been the case. But yeah, it's definitely been a thought for me. But I'm like, also, okay, I didn't pay a premium for him. And at the end of the day, he still is a very good wide receiver. And so part of it is my belief in Sean McVay utilizing his team to the fullest. So if Puka were to go to somebody like the Panthers, I would be.
Maybe we'll write this up for Charlie and MK and just say like, hey,
that's a good question.
As a dynasty player, when do I?
When do I move on from old Puka?
It seems like the upside is just so high that it's nothing.
You just write it out.
The downside is nothing
young.
compared to the upside. So you might as well
because he's
keep
young.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they'll say.
Okay. I don't know who wrote this.
Oh, I got this. You want me to do this one?
Yeah, go ahead, Alan.
You want me to do this one? Hey,
it's a very unorthodox
shout
episode,
out.
but go ahead.
Yeah, shout out to Lombardi Ave on X. I saw this and I thought we had to talk about it because I thought it was a funny take about Jordan Love because Jordan Love has had such an up and down like career where he seems to start off slow and then he definitely picks it up. But Lombardi Ave on X equates in buckets Jordan Love's season and career, basically how he is during Toyotathon and how he is outside of Toyotathon. And if you don't know what Toyotathon is or you've been living under a rock, it's basically Toyota's holiday car sale that they have, kind of like Honda Days. So basically all it's saying is during the Toyotathon, Jordan Love has MVP numbers. So outside of Toyotathon, Jordan Love thrown for about 4,000 yards. He has 29 touchdowns and 25 picks. So kind of like, During Toyotathon, which seems to be his hotspot, he must just love the car deals. He's thrown for 3,200 yards. He has 26 touchdowns and only 2 picks. So I think it's what it's really highlighting. Obviously, it's like a funny way to highlight how he ends the season. But he definitely, over the last few years, has picked it up as it's gotten colder, which is very Green Bay Packer of him to like really pick it up when the weather starts to change. It happened this week again. The Packers took care of the Seahawks. It was largely like it wasn't uneventful. Geno Smith did go out with a knee injury. It looks like he might be out for some considerable time. But, Love throwing up 230 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jacobs got it done. The Packers defense looked good again. And I think a lot of people circled this game. Obviously, it was the late game. It was, on that primetime spot for a reason, that the Seahawks were going to do some damage or could come down to the wire. And it was largely, like I said, uneventful. So I guess my question to you guys, knowing all this during Jordan Love's Toyotathon event, is, do the Packers, they're 10-4, they're trending. We see what's happening with the Lions. I think a lot of people are still skeptic of the Vikings. Could we say the third place team in the NFC North is probably the best team right now in the NFC North?
Well, I think you look at the Lions, and we're going to talk about the Lions game here in just a moment, but they're facing a lot of injuries right now, like you mentioned, and I do think that is weighing heavily on my mind as far as the performance moving forward. The Packers look good, but the Packers did this last year too, where they started out slow, and then all of a sudden you're like, what the hell's going on? The Packers are a competing team, and it's like the same story's playing out again this year. I had the Packers winning this game against Seattle, and I want to say Seattle was actually favored. I'd have to double check that, but I believe that they might have been. And I think the Packers are a legitimate team, and that division is the hardest division in NFL football right now. There's absolutely no question in my mind. You have the Vikings, the Packers, the Lions, and then the Bears sitting at the bottom. And it's like you have 3 juggernaut teams in that division, which is absurd to say given the start of the season. We all thought that the Bears were going to be better. Nobody had the Vikings doing this. The Packers, we all had chatted and said were frisky, and the Lions were going to lead the division. That's still currently the case, and that could change in the coming weeks. I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised. And I do think that by the end of this thing, the Packers could be leading the division. I do believe that. So, yeah, the Packers are kind of like the Rams, where you don't want to play the Packers right now.
Yeah. Yep. If you're going to invest in one of the 3 top teams, you got to put $100 on one of them. Which team are you doing right now? You're like, hey, this is where all my confidence is going.
Packers.
You got to put and I think so too.
Yeah, I think it's either them or the Vikings with the current state. The Packers, one thing, we keep saying they started out slow, but when you look at who they've played and how things have gone, this is kind of the polar opposite of the Chargers conversation. The Packers have only lost games to the best teams in the NFL. They've only lost games to the Eagles, to the Vikings, to the Lions. That's the caliber of team that they are competing with and trying to take that next step. Everybody else, the Packers will be favored, and they should be, because this is a really, really, really good football team. And if they continue on this trajectory, there's no reason to think they don't make a deep postseason run.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, and we were talking about the Lions, so let's just talk about them. Let's talk about the Bills and the Lions, because this game lived up to the expectation here. The Bills did win this game 48-42. Congratulations to anybody that took the over in this game, because having 90 points in a game is absolutely insane. But it was everything that it lived up to be. This game was fun. It was a fun game, and I do have a fun fact to share with you, gentlemen. Jared Goff has thrown 5 interceptions, and the Lions still won that game. Jared Goff has also thrown 5 touchdowns and lost a game in this season. So, that's just kind of interesting that you can throw 5 interceptions and still win.
That might be
throw
the
5
best
touchdowns and still lose.
That might be the best stat to illustrate how significant the defensive injuries have been for the Lions.
I agree. That shows you where it fell off.
They went from being a team that could overcome offensive adversity to a team that needs perfection on offense in order to win.
The only thing that would be more fun about that stat if it was Jameis Winston's stat. That feels like a stat that Jameis Winston should own, and I feel like he needs to circle this one and go out and be like, all right, I got to figure out how we can do this.
Take the stat over.
I got to have that one.
I do think we need to start having a question about how we view the Lions going forward, because I've said over and over again that they're the best team in football. They're still certainly right up there, because I think they arguably have the best offense in football, or at least in that conversation. But these injuries are really, really starting to pile up. And the question now is not whether they're the best team in the NFL, but are they the best team in the NFC? And I think that's a real legitimate question at this point in time. And we have to start thinking, when I watched that game last night, part of me, on Sunday night, part of me was like, it could be a Super Bowl preview. We could be getting this right now. And after that game, when I just saw this Lions defense, and granted the Bills have been incredible all season long, but you saw this Lions defense incapable of doing anything on the defensive side of the ball. that makes me really worried when you start getting into the postseason and you're playing nothing but high-powered teams. Like that makes me really concerned, and I'm now less confident than ever that the Lions are going to, make it all the way.
Well, you lose David Montgomery, right? That doesn't help, and this is from an offensive standpoint, mind you. But, you've lost Hutch. Hutch was a huge piece for that defense. I want to say Brian Branch. I can't remember if he got injured in this last game or not.
I don't think he's injured, but they lost both their corners. They lost another defensive lineman. I think they lost a linebacker over the last couple of weeks. Like, they're scrambling. Dan Campbell keeps getting asked about this at press conferences, and he just keeps giving the coach speak answer of, next man up, we're all ready to go. But at some point, we got to be like, okay, this is having an impact. I understand he's going to say that, but we have to be honest with ourselves. Like, this is having a real impact.
Well, and you asked the question, are they the best team in the NFC North right now? And looking at the NFC North standings, the Lions are sitting at the top at 12-2. The Vikings are right behind them at 11-2. The Packers are 10-4, and the Bears are 4-9. So I think it's safe to say the Bears aren't in contention here. But you look at these other three teams, and it's like, I don't know if they are the best team in the NFC anymore.
And that's not even counting the Eagles.
Correct. The NFC North was a lock mid-season. The Lions are a lock. They're unstoppable. But due to the injuries, I think that has drastically changed the landscape and the outlook of this Lions team. I don't have them as the best team in the NFC North anymore. I think it would be the Vikings or the Packers, and I think it's gonna. These next few weeks are gonna be very telling. But I am concerned with the Lions. I really am.
Yeah, there's a scenario still here where the Lions, end up as the 5 seed in the NFC after the year they've had, and you think about how they looked at part of this season, and it just shows you the war of attrition. It just happens. It's going to happen. You not wanting to beat a dead horse. You look at the Chiefs, but you look at both sides, AFC, NFC, and I think you could look at both of the current number 1 seeds in both the AFC and NFC and say those are actually not the best teams in their conference. And I don't think anybody would argue with you, because I think that's just how it looks right now going into the playoffs. So it will be interesting what the Lions can scrounge together, but that defense, that's a problem. And honestly, for the Bills, back-to-back weeks, I'm also kind of this kind of looks like a problem as well, because unless Josh Allen can just go nuke on everybody every week, this is going to be a challenge. And you got to think one of these weeks he's going to have, it's not going to click. There's going to be some struggle. Wide receivers drop some balls. You have some turnovers, and especially in the playoffs, you got to be able to lean on your defense to pick you up a little bit, because these games never go as the regular season goes. And for both fans coming out of that game, while it looks like Josh Allen might have secured MVP, as somebody on this podcast called right away at the beginning of the season, I won't name names, it might be me, but if you have to rely on him to do that now. And it's very interesting because this is turning into Burrow. And we talked about at the beginning, what if the Bengals sneak in? And if the Bengals had to play the Bills, it's whatever the over is in that one, I might take that too, depending on what the weather is, because the Bills defense is looking, and this is a very good Lions offense. So also got to give credit where credit's due. But this is back-to-back weeks. They gave up a ton of points and yards to Matt Stafford and the Rams, and then they come in and give a ton of points to the Lions. And it's okay. And they might not see that caliber right away in the AFC, because the offenses I don't think are as explosive, but it's pause for concern if I'm a fan for both teams. It's what does my defense do now?
Yeah, the Bills are the 27th ranked defense right now. And it's tough. When Josh Allen's playing this well, you can't ever obviously count him out, but that could be a real problem in the postseason as well. And we might end up running into the same thing. How many times have we seen the Bills go to the playoffs and then lose shootouts? That happens all the time. And we might be looking at the same sort of thing, but with the Lions in a similar situation, it's the end of the season is really getting exciting. There are so many teams that could very well be competing for a Super Bowl this year. In
this game, you could say if Dan Campbell didn't kick that onside kick,
and
the
ironically,
could have walked away with this one. But I kind of agree with the call. But you could see them walking away with this one.
Yeah, ironic. I was watching this game with my brother, and I of course always talk to him about my montage with Dan Campbell. And when he did that, he's like, "Oh, Dan Campbell's doing it again." And I'm like, "I don't know, man. Their defense now is just so banged up that it's almost like Dan Campbell's crazy decisions are more justified than ever. Now he should be going for it on every 4th down, because you can't trust your defense to stop anybody at this point in time. This is what the Bengals should be doing too. Just go for it all the time, because your best chance of winning games is just to try and keep the opposing offense off the field."
Do you guys think Sean McDermott should be on the hot seat if they do not make a deep playoff run this year? Like, do you think the Bills should move on from him?
I don't know.
I think the fans, some of the diehard fans would say yes. I think they're looking at this team right now, and I think the only thing they can think of is we're going to the Super Bowl. There's no reason right now, this Bills team right now shouldn't be.
You think
in the
most
Super
Bills
Bowl.
fans think that they should be in the Super Bowl right now?
With this team, yeah.
With this team.
Yeah, I think this is if there's a team that's going to do it in a year, they're going to do it. AFC looks as dead as ever outside of the Bills because you don't trust the Chiefs, you don't trust the Steelers, you don't trust the Broncos, you don't trust the Chargers.
The
You know,
Ravens are
in
schizophrenic.
the Ravens, yeah, you don't know. Like I think there's so many variables right now at the AFC that if you're like, we have the team to do it.
Does that not beg the question, or almost further solidify my question? Should Sean McDermott be on the hot seat if they don't make a deep playoff run here?
If he pulls something like he did against the Rams, he will be 100%.
He's in a situation where, he's in a situation where they're like he's been on the edge of being on the hot seat for what seems like forever. Like it seems like this Bills team with Josh Allen. What have we always said? As long as they have Josh Allen, they have a shot. But, obviously they've been limited in how far they've been able to go, and that kind of puts him on the edge of the hot seat all the time. So I think I'll take a page from Allen's book. It just depends on what it looks like. Like it depends on if it's some stupid decision that you can pin a loss to the coaching. Well, then yeah, absolutely. But it's hard to argue with the success that they've had on a Bills team that we have to remind ourselves coming into the season we didn't really know what to expect from this Bills team. We didn't know if they'd be good. We didn't know if this would be a major down year, and they look like one of the best teams in football. So it's hard to put them on the hot seat right now, just given that result, knowing the success that they've had with sort of a subtraction in pieces.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Let me phrase this question a little bit differently. Do you think that the Bills are winning because of Josh Allen or because of their coaching? Which one, if you had to put more eggs in one basket, which would you state?
Well, if you have to choose between the two, well then it's Josh Allen. He's the MVP. He's killing it. But this is also a team that when they switched offensive coordinators last year and they decided to lean more on James Cook and they introduced Ray Davis this year into the fold, and he seems awesome. And they're not afraid to establish the running game. They've struggled with that, here and there, but for the most part, this has been a pretty balanced offense. It's not Josh Allen's been playing hero ball over the last 3 games just because he can. Like he's out here just doing incredible things, but he hasn't really had to do that this entire season. So I would say it's less on Josh Allen needing to be the hero now than ever before in recent Bills history.
Yep. I think when you put it that way, I was going to say like 95% this is all Josh Allen, but I would agree with you. I think their ability to run the ball and the emphasis on running the ball. Listen, Josh Allen has all the time in the world back there when he wants to throw it. He has all the time. His line is amazing. They're running the ball amazing. Like that's the MVP of this team. Like I love Josh Allen and I think he's great and he will win the MVP. But the MVP of this team is the offensive line. Like they can go get you 7 yards on the ground if you want it. Well, now what do? Now the safeties creep up. Now you play action. Now Josh Allen has all day. Now he can chuck it wherever he wants because everybody's so scared of their ability to run the ball. And I think that offensive line, their ability to run block and give him time is why they're in this position. So I would say a little bit of both, but I don't think it's because of McDermott. I think McDermott.
If you were to take McDermott out of the equation and give him a different head coach, do they find better results? If you were to take Sean McVay and go throw him on the Bills, do we feel more confident, or Kyle Shanahan or Kevin O'Connell? If you were to take any of those coaches and go throw them on the Bills, do you think the Bills find better success? Yeah,
I think they'd have more consistent success over the years, without a doubt. Those are just better coaches.
I also think that there's a big difference between not being talked about among the top tier coaches in the NFL and being on the hot seat. I think Sean McDermott exists somewhere in between, and because of the success that they've had, especially this season, it's kind of difficult to move him back to the hot seat side of things. When they're winning games. I mean, that's the end of the.
Okay, last question on Sean McDermott here. Who should be more on the hot seat at this time, in your opinions? Zach Taylor or Sean McDermott?
Taylor, without a doubt.
I don't know. I see them both kind of the same way. I look at the Bengals' problems, and I think it's beyond coaching. I think both of them are sort of middle of the road coaches that have found some success, and I think if you had to choose between the two, Taylor's probably the one because their defense is just so abysmal, like just so pathetic. They're on a whole different level. We're talking about the Bills giving up points. The Bengals defense is on a whole nother level of bad.
I mean, the Bills defense isn't great either. You just mentioned ESPN had them at 27.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, even with that knowledge, the Bengals defense is historically bad, like terrible. And so I'd say that more blame needs to.
I would
be on
say
the
Zach
organization.
Taylor, mainly because he's done the worst in situations where he has to adapt. Like he has no idea what to do. And McDermott kind of figured out what to do. They moved from the OC last year. They're running the ball a little bit more. Like he's finding ways to win in areas that maybe they hadn't been leaning on before. So I will give him some credit there because largely that starts with the head coach. I think some of his in-game decisions and strategy are like terrible. It's almost like he's not sure what to do or he's never rehearsed what to do. He's just kind of like figuring it out for the first time when he's doing it, which is not good. Versus Zach Taylor, where it's like if everything doesn't go to plan, if everybody's not healthy, if he doesn't have his defense there to back him up, like he doesn't know how to adjust. And I think that's largely what the Bengals are, what they run into now, because I think the Bengals should be doing a lot of what the Lions or the Bills are doing and running the ball more and controlling the clock and keeping the defense off the field where it's sexy to throw it. It looks good. That's their strength. But like he's just not adapting. And now you have the schedule they have.
And by the way, I need to correct myself because I read this wrong. So the Bills are the 14th ranked defense, so middle of the pack more. The Bengals are 27th. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the Bengals are 27th. So I apologize.
I was going to say the Bengals had to be 32 then if the Bills are 27.
Yeah, when you brought that up, I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. So yeah, that's correct.
Well, thank you for clarifying, so that way all of the fans do not come and attack us. And all right, let's go over to kickoff karaoke, gentlemen, and we'll get the heck out of here. So, kickoff karaoke for those who do not know, we are playing kickoff karaoke, and every week we are picking 4 games against the spread. We're keeping track. We're keeping track of all of our picks throughout the season, and whoever gets last place here has to sing the national anthem live before the Super Bowl for all of you over on X. Currently, the standings. Alan, you've been second place most of the season, and you have now crept into first place at 33. I think this is the second week that you have been maintaining that first place lead. Scotty, you're in second place with 31, and old Slapdog here is at 29. So I am making my way downtown, and I got
a point
fast.
of contention. You only gave me 1 point from last week, and I'm pretty sure I got the Rams and the Bucs correct.
I don't know. You'd have to go look.
I am looking right now.
No, I like this. Let's keep this going where it's a question. I've never once questioned the numbers. I'm just like, meh.
Well, I've been doing the numbers, and
Scotty,
if I do say so myself, I am perfect. But Slapdog did the numbers this time, so I'm double checking his ass, and it's a good thing I did because you shorted me a point.
Okay, then
so you're at 32. Okay.
Well,
but Slaps, I think the story here is Slaps is he's coming back.
I'm coming for you, baby.
This is going to go down to the wire.
Check his numbers too.
Yeah, can you check mine too?
Check them, because I did pick the Eagles and the Bills to cover last week, and some of y'all did.
All right, after we're done recording, Scotty, can you go back and just do like a full audit? I want to top.
I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at it right now. We're good. Mine was the only one.
Okay. Actually, the only thing I'll say is if I actually drop it any, stop auditing if I actually have less picks right.
You actually have 14. We're being very generous. Okay, so the 4 games that we picked this week are the Broncos at the Chargers, the Rams at the Jets, the Titans at the Colts, and the Cardinals at the Panthers. Alan, as the reigning champ so far, I'm going to let you go first here. So Broncos at Chargers. The Chargers are 3.5-point favorites. Who you got, buddy?
This one's tough because I hate both of these teams very much. You know what? I got to stick with my guns. I've been a Broncos guy all year. I'm going to stick with the Broncos. I think Chargers are reeling a little bit. The Broncos are playing some of their best football. I think if Bo Nix cannot turn the ball over against the Chargers, which Jim Harbaugh is going to be super horny for turnovers, so he has to be careful. I like the Broncos.
Okay.
To cover the 3.5.
Scotty, who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a great opportunity to get another point, Slapdog, because I'm also going with the Broncos.
Son of a gun.
And
I was
the
hoping
main
one of you
reason,
was going to take the Chargers.
Well, this is just pure emotion on my part. I do think the Broncos are the better team, but obviously the Chargers had already beaten the Broncos this season, and I think that game was a fluke. I think it was bullshit. So I think the Broncos are going to come in and show them who's boss.
No, I was hoping one of you guys was going to take the Chargers. Vegas has the Chargers, but I would also take the Broncos here. I do think the Broncos. I got the hiccups. I think the Broncos are the better team. So I'm not going to speculate much more because I think Alan pretty much said everything I wanted to. We will move over to the Rams at the Jets. The Rams are 3.5-point favorites. Scotty, who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Rams. The Rams are on the up and up. I think, they were one of my preseason teams to be contending for a Super Bowl this year, and obviously injuries, and they've had some hardship and fell behind quite a bit. But they're getting healthy now, and I think that this is a team that can compete with damn near anybody in football when they're healthy. So I think that the Jets are inexplicable to me. I don't understand why they suck so bad, but they suck pretty bad. So I'm just going to go
because Aaron Rodgers got half the organization fired. I'm going to take Rams as well. The Rams, the team nobody wants to play. The Jets have looked terrible this entire season, and a large part of that is because of Aaron Rodgers and his old crinkly body. So I don't think the Jets get it done. I'm going to take the Rams. And Alan, who are you taking?
Body. I wrestled with this one a lot more than I thought because I like the way the Jets looked last week. They look like they were kind of playing a little bit more loose and figuring some things out.
Who'd they play?
The Jaguars. I'm not going to take, but I am going to take the Rams, mainly just because they have a fire lit under their butt to get this division. So I think they're going to. I think.
Come
that's
on,
where it's
man!
gonna go.
Your heart's telling you the Jets. Just take them.
I can't.
Last chance.
Said I wrestled
Last
with
chance.
Nah.
You want to keep wrestling?
I think the stronger argument is for you to take the Jets, Slaps, because you need the Rams to freaking lose.
Yeah, but I don't need to go down anymore.
You got to put all your eggs in one basket.
No, I'm diversifying my portfolio.
Okay.
Is what I keep saying.
Okay, Slaps.
Titans at the Colts. Colts are 4.5-point favorites. I am going to take the time. Just kidding. I'm taking the Colts. I do think the Colts are a better team. The Titans look like ass. The Titans look terrible, and the Colts also don't look great. But the Titans look that bad, where I think the Colts will win by 4.5 points. So I'm going to take them. Alan, who are you taking?
I'm also going to take the Colts. I think last week with Jonathan Taylor, I think they're a little pissed off after that one. I think you're going to see a very
chain him in the
focused
closet.
team.
He's going to be caged
like
a wild beast.
I wouldn't be surprised if Jonathan Taylor has like 3 touchdowns. Shout out to anybody in the fantasy playoffs that has Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if he's a common roster spot to have if you're in the playoffs, but if you happen to have him and you're in the playoffs, shout out because he's probably going to get some touchdowns this week.
All right, Scotty, you taking the Titans here?
Yeah, good job,
No,
Scotty.
I'm not going to take the Titans.
Come
That
on,
would be
Scotty.
crazy.
Are we going
Here's
to
the thing.
chop?
I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans won because I think both these teams are pretty – like Anthony Richardson could throw like 4 interceptions in this game. Like would anyone
Or
be
he could
surprised?
run 4 touchdowns in.
That's true. That's kind of the game that you play with Anthony Richardson. But ultimately, the Colts are the more complete team. The Titans are a total dumpster fire. And maybe most importantly, I'm going to pick the same as Slapdog so he can't, get any headway on me in this competition.
Gosh.
Holy, this is
Where do I go
baloney.
next?
Alan, you do go next. Bring us home here. We got the Cardinals
Yes.
at the Panthers. The Cardinals are 4.5-point favorites.
I'm taking the Panthers. I like this. This is a stinky line.
All right.
I like this.
Kind of
This is a stinky line. This is 4.5. I think the Panthers are playing really well. I think Bryce Young is starting to come into his own. They've looked good the past few weeks. I think the Cardinals are coming in, kind of limping around, trying to find themselves again. I think the Cardinals could still win, but I think the Cardinals win by a field goal late, and I think the Panthers cover the 4.5.
Okay. Scotty.
Yeah, this one's tough.
This one is fun.
Am going to take the Cardinals. And the reason why is I think we are all grading the Panthers on a curve a little bit. I think we are saying, wow, look at this team. They're looking pretty good. They're looking competent. But we're comparing them to the worst organization in football, which has been the Panthers. And we're saying, wow, they look a lot better than that. But still, compared to other teams, I don't think that they're quite there yet. So I think the Cardinals, if they can put together a competent game, they can win.
Keep feeding me, baby. I'm in for this. I'm also going to take the Cardinals because they're my team, and I got to support and show out. And I also do think the Panthers are – I don't want to say frisky because they're not frisky yet, but they're showing signs of life. And I think that it wouldn't surprise me if the Panthers won this game, but it also wouldn't surprise me if the Cardinals won this game by 3 touchdowns. So I think this could really go either way in who wants to show up for the game this week, and I think that the Cardinals might actually want to play football this week. It's just a hunch I've got. So,
all right, we'll circle that one. We'll circle that one.
That's going to be the game. That's going to be the only game because we've all.
That's it.
I need to win this. I need to get to 30.
It's either one up or I'm
game.
tied with Scotty. It's either one up or I'm tied with Scotty. That's the only thing that can happen this week.
I like it.
Or I'm 2 up on Scotty. All right.
Yeah. I need you to lose. I need the Panthers to lose this game. There's a lot riding on this, more than the Panthers fully understand. And that's it. All right. That's the show. We appreciate all you dirty old nasty brainiacs tuning in. I will let you know. Go check out LeatherBrainz.com, and we have daily content over there. All of our writers are doing a wonderful job. So if you're looking for fantasy football advice, if you're looking for really almost any NFL content or what have you in regards to NFL articles, go check them out. They are completely free, and our writers do a wonderful job. And check out Fantasy Brains on Thursday. Just like Alan had mentioned earlier in the show.
My bad.
Go check out Fantasy Brains on Thursday. They do a wonderful job of providing a lot of fantasy football advice and content over there. And that's it. That's all the time we got, gentlemen. Let's get the hell out of here. We are
out.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out LeatherBrainz.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.